Let's talk about cars and all things auto related. Now we're talking. There's three laws of the land when it comes to vehicles and cutting your expenses. Is one, never lease a vehicle. Don't do it. Secondly, never buy a car that requires payments. Don't finance your cars. Thirdly, only buy a new car if you can pay for the vehicle in fat stacks, in cash. So the first rule, never lease a vehicle. Leasing is just financing a car. It's borrowing money. And as we defined debt in the beginning of our course, debt is just borrowed money. It's money we don't have outright that we have to borrow from someone else. Leasing is the same thing. You're borrowing money, paying a percentage off each month. Then you have the choice of handing the keys back over to them or paying whatever is left of the car's value to purchase it outright. And for the most part, we don't even end up owning the car at the end of the lease. We just made payments to use someone else's car, which is kind of odd. Why rent? It's like renting. Why rent this thing when you could own it? You could own your own vehicle that's fully yours, but we'd rather lease. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe it's the perception to appear as though you have wealth. That's embarrassing. Who are you trying to impress? No one in your life is that important enough to cause you financial ruin. No one. You could chalk it up to believing you may be escaping depreciation when you drive the vehicle off of the lot by leasing, because it goes down in value, but you're leasing it, so it doesn't affect you. But if you were a business person, wouldn't you incorporate that loss in value into your monthly payments that you were charging someone else on their lease? You would. And just so you know, your payments are covering that depreciation. It's built into your lease. They're not taking a loss. You're paying for that depreciation. They're going to get their money. So let's actually talk about some interest rates when it comes to leasing, because most leases don't even state your interest rate outright. They don't have to include them. But they are involved. Whenever you finance something, no one is letting you borrow money out of the kindness of their heart. It's because they get something in return. So if you calculate the value of the car when you first start your lease, add up your payments and calculate what the value of your car is by the end of the lease, you'll find there's an interest rate between 13 and 16% applied to it. It's usually around 14% is the average, but between 13 and 16. So essentially, it may not be written in your lease that you pay an interest rate, but you can calculate value to value and work backwards from your monthly payments to see that you have interest building on it. More commonly, what you'll see in your lease is there's going to be something outlined as a money factor or cost of capital. For example, you may have a money factor of 0.00188 in your car lease. It's a small number, but it's a dangerous number. You can convert that money factor to an interest rate by multiplying it by 2,400 to get 4.5% is the interest on it. However, let's do it. Let's do a real deal example with all things included. Everything I just said, value to value, figuring out what your interest rate is on your lease. So if you have an existing car lease contract and want to find out the interest rate you're paying, you need to find your rent charge or your lease charge in your agreement. That's included in the lease agreement. That's the total of all the finance charges that will be paid during the life of your lease. This you will definitely be able to find in your contract. It's not like the interest rate where it's not in there. This will be in there. From there, we're going to plug it into this formula at the very bottom of the slide right here, where it's the interest rate equals 2,400 times your rent charge divided by the net cap cost plus your residual value divided by your term. So the net cap cost is the net price the lease is based on minus any down payment. So if your car was worth $20,000 and you put a $2,000 down payment, this number would be $18,000. Your net cap cost would be $18,000. Your residual is the lease and residual value, how much that piece of junk is worth at the end of your lease term. So let's say it depreciated $10K, then the term is the number in months. So if it depreciated $10K, it'd be worth $10K. So let's say the term is the number in months. 36 is usually what they are, but I think you can get 24. You could probably choose any lease amount, but your term is how long it is. So let's say you're paying, $500 over the course of a 3-year loan. That's kind of what it would look like. So let's do an example with some real numbers. So let's say your rent charge is $9,000. You pay $250 over the course of a 3-year lease, 36 months. Boom, you got $9,000. Your net cap cost is equal to $30,000. Let's say you It's a $32,000 car. You put a $2K down payment on it. That's how we get $30,000 residual. This thing depreciated like crazy. Now it's $10,500 at the end of your lease. After 3 years, your term is 36 months. And so your interest rate is equal to your 2,400 times your rent charge divided by 30,000, your net cap, plus your 10,500 residual, all divided by 36. That comes out to 14.8%. That is how you would find it for your own. What I recommend to you is finding out your rent charge, figuring out what it was that you started out in your lease, what the value of the car was, and then you could probably Kelly Blue Book it or something like that to figure out the residual, what it's worth now, or what do you predict it'll be in a few months from now. And then that's how you can see how much you have paid in interest. So now we're hitting the next rule of never buy a car that requires payments. And after explaining the leasing, you may have an idea of why I would say this even if we are becoming full owners of the vehicle. You know, we're buying this car, it's going to be ours, but we had to finance to get it. You never want to purchase a vehicle that requires payments, because that means you're financing to just afford it. You're going to pay more for it. If you buy a $32,000 vehicle, you put down $5,000 as a down payment, but then you have to pay back that $27,000 remaining at a 4.5% interest with a minimum payment of $500 a month. It'll take you over 5 years to pay for it, and you'll end up paying over $3,000 in interest to do it. You're paying over $3,000 of what this thing is even worth. The idea of paying more for something than what it is worth just makes my blood boil. And this is also hitting the core of what we've been chatting about. Anytime we borrow money, we're putting ourselves in a hole we have to dig out of when we just don't have to. You're digging a hole and you don't even have to be digging a hole. There are plenty of affordable vehicles out there that we can pay for cash in hand. 99.9% of cars are not an investment. As soon as you buy that piece of metal with your financing, it begins depreciating immediately. You don't need to look cool. You don't need to drive the latest model. You need to get out of debt. Cars are not an investment. We want to put our money in things that are actually going to grow over time. So let's do some basic math on leasing versus buying. This is very layman's terms of this math. You got your purchase price of $10K. And if you're buying, the top one is if you're buying, this one is if you're leasing. So your purchase price is $10K. Your down payment is $10K. Interest rate is 0, 0, 0. So you pay $10K for this car. Let's say you want the same $10,000 vehicle, but you're going to finance for it. You're going to put down $10K. Down payment is $2,000. Then you're going to have an interest rate of 14% over 36 months. Your monthly payment is $345, and you end up paying over $2,000 more for the exact same vehicle. Anything that involves financing an interest rate or continuous payments is going to end up costing you more in the long run, and we absolutely do not want that. We don't. We just need a vehicle that gets us from A to B. More on automobiles in the next video. I'll see you there.